Good evening, good afternoon, wherever in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours you are may be, and welcome to another exciting installment of Living World of Darkness. Now, certain events are pivotal in moments of history. There's the Treaty of Versailles, the Covenant of Strasbourg, the Vienna Convention. We're about to witness a new one, which is that moment where two foes who have been rivals for longer than the world can possibly remember, though Gaia does remember, are about to come together and sign a covenant, a treatise of peace, non-aggression, end of hostility for yet another century. So it was when Prince Dorian first put his pen to these articles, so many centuries. The kindred have been instructed to gather on the steps of the Elysium, the Calabrande building in downtown New Orleans, and await further instructions. It is an eerily still night. The wind isn't blowing, the clouds are static, and yet the air is charged with so much electricity. It feels like a night of history. It feels like a night that will be remembered. And so we join our kindred, waiting on the steps of this grand old building.
The prince is just looking around. He and Vivian both have canes, which is standard for them. Loretta would have her sword, but they're not looking like they want to be violent or anything. They're just waiting.
Vivian stands at Patrick's side quietly.
He's just leaning on his cane. Starts to whistle.
From the shadows, on to the left of the building, an attractive young lady steps. She looks you up and down, her eyes shimmering. Before we continue, can somebody give me the live link to this and just send it to me on Facebook, as people are like baying to watch it? Please.
I'll sort that out, mate. Don't worry about it.
Cool. Just post it up on the Facebook if you won't mind. An attractive young lady stands out, looks up the collective up and down, and goes, "I don't know why, but I'd expected something better from a Leech Lord."
He squints at her and he just smiles. His face is, of course, scarred. "Well, I hate to disappoint you. This is what you've got."
Somehow I kind of thought you'd be taller. She steps fully out into the light. She appears to be of Native American descent, is rather shapely, and she simply says, "Well then, I don't have all evening if you'd like to follow me."
Of course, of course. He looks to the other two, and he inclines his head for them to follow him, and he starts to follow her.
Bear with me, I need to check something. You make your way down through the streets to the Mississippi docks. No, not to the Mississippi docks. To the mighty Mississippi River, that is quite close to the building, about 5 minutes walk. This girl doesn't talk to you at all. She seems all businesslike. You see, as you approach the riverside, another individual, another Native American, similarly dressed in a black trench coat, wearing a nondescript black shirt and trousers, standing beside two airboats. For those of you who don't know what an airboat is, they are the large boats that are powered by a single fan at the back. Would you care to step on board, Leech Prince?
He looks at her, kind of shaking his head a little bit and smiling thinly, and he gestures for the other two to get on board first. "Where's your manners, girl? Ladies first."
"Oh, I reserve those for things that have a soul."
After the other two are on board, the prince gets on board after them, and he just shakes his head a little bit again while smiling at her. He gets on board.
The massive fans at the back of the boats begin their rotation until they have reached a fever pitch. For those of you who have never been on these contraptions before, you are pressed back into your seat as they propel you forward at quite an impressive rate of speed. The drivers are eerily quiet. You are each given noise-cancelling headphones, as the sound is quite unnerving. You travel for what seems like hours, and in truth it probably is, into the depths of the bayou, into the murky waters the hanging lichen, the gnarled trees. These entities that are piloting the ships, or piloting the boats, seem more at home here than they did in the city, more vivacious, until at last your trip is ended and the airboats stop. At the airboats stop. As you look up, you see a huge tree. This tree is centuries old. It is broad. It is wide. It stands about a mile distant from you. Standing standing on the bank, you will see a man in a more what one would call traditional werewolf form. The two individuals get out and kneel before him and say, "We have done as you asked. We have done as you asked. Runs with season."
Be stand and be well, my children. Go.
They will do so.
Welcome to the sacred tree.
The prince nods and smiles. Thank you for having us.
I am Runs with Seasons. You I do not recognize.
No, I'm afraid the former Prince Marcella has passed. I am the new Prince, Patrick McKinnon, but I come here in good faith to sign the treaty.
He nods abruptly. The werewolf himself is, I'm not sure how tall you are, but he's a lot shorter than you'd expect, but wearing quite a modern garb, although as you can see from the image portrayed, he has very bestial features, a snarling snout, piercing wolf eyes, thick brown hair, and tribalitic tattoos that seem to cover from him from arms to torso, even to part of his head and face. He walks to you with his hands out wide. Be welcome, McKinnon. Who are these that you bring from your pack?
I bring my child, Vivian, and my new friend, Loretta. And he points to them both. Loretta is a warrior, but of good spirit, good temperament. No one here is looking for anything other than to treat with you fairly and honorably, sir. Thank you again. And he holds his hands out the same way. And then he's just using it like a walking stick.
He steps forward, and rather uncomfortably, like he's invading your personal space, he sniffs very deeply, breathing in the air, slides over, and seems to stalk and walk in amongst you, seems to be circling the prince in a very predatory manner. He sniffs the air again and stops, and a low growl appears as his eyes turn towards Loretta. He starts moving towards her, eyes blaring. You can see that the veins in his neck begin to spawn. They seem to stand on end.
The prince sort of turns and says, "Is there something wrong?"
Silently, he seems to finish his evaluation. You cannot come to the sacred tree in this state. You will be cleansed. Come. And he begins to take off his own jacket and take off his trousers. In fact, he is completely nude. The tattoos and tribal finds you see are going down completely. He goes to one of the roots of the tree and brings up a small bag, bringing forth tied branches and twigs together. He starts running a line with his claw in the dirt around you, taking about a few steps paces, making a circle.
The prince is just sort of looking. Is it around just her, or is it around everyone?
It's around everyone.
Okay. The prince says, "Is there anything we should do to help?" Or...
Please unrobe. It will help.
He sighs and nods, "If I must." And then he starts to take off his clothes. He's pretty abrupt about it. He's 200 plus years old, so it's not anything to him. And he puts everything down, including his cane. He just leaves it there.
Runs with Seasons will take the clothes and fold them very delicately and place them over a branch. He'll take the cane and lean it up against a tree as well, paying utter respect to your possessions as he moves towards the women.
Vivian will have looked over at Patrick when the Runs with Seasons asked to disrobe. She just looked for a moment like she may be a little uncomfortable, but she just kind of eyes and does the same as her sire, and she removes her clothing and drops her cane.
You can see that Runs with Spirit is very disinterested in anyone's sort of duty. He seems very blasé about it. He simply takes the clothes with the same reverence and any items as well, and places them next to the princes as well, before moving to Loretta.
Loretta will follow suit quite swiftly, looking at the ground most of the time.
Do you wish us to burn this one's clothes, Master? The voice comes from the kinfolk who escorted the kindred here.
He waves them away. Shoo, children, shoo!
They proceed to scurry, literally petrified of their existence, into the brush.
He you can see him exhaling and sort of shaking his head like a troubled father. Ah, children. Always want to see father at work. Now,
Patrick will smile at this, and he'll nod like as if he understands.
Now, he says he takes a Zippo lighter and begins to light the twigs, taking them towards the bayou and dousing them so a thick smoke begins to appear. Mr. McKinnon, rite of cleansing for one of your kinds is a painful process. But do not be alarmed. It is not lasting.
No.
And with that, Runs with Seasons begins to take a handful of the water, place it upon each of the kindred's heads, sprinkling them with the water while dancing around the circle, waving the smouldering branches with smoke.
As he does this, each one of the kindred feel what would almost be described as a light upon them. They almost feel as if they're standing in daylight. It is utterly agonizing. It is as if their inner being is being burned away, the outer layer being consumed by fire. I will make a point, though. Worst of all, it feels worst of all for Loretta. It feels as though she is being judged by the eye of an unfeeling, uncaring deity who thinks of her as wrong. Until at last the dancing ends, the pain subsides, and you stand there unharmed, but with memories of the agony that you suffered.
The prince tries not to betray any emotions, but it's hard. His face is a permanent wince. He then kind of forces his fangs to retract and then says, "Is there anything else we should do, Runs with Seasons?"
It seems you are understanding where your place is in this world, McKinnon. And understand is the first step to realization. Come. The Alpha will speak with you now.
McKinnon gestures for the other two to fall behind him in line, and then he starts to walk behind you.
I'm just making the point that you are walking in completely undressed at this point.
No, he doesn't care.
Okay.
Yep, we haven't forgotten. And she follows Patrick, watching Patrick very closely as seeing him in pain again upset her just a tad. But
Loretta will hesitate for a moment before shuffling along behind, clearly a little bit, clearly trying to cover a bit of distress.
As you proceed down through a line of trees, you can feel eyes on you, but you can see not from whence they come. You walk for several minutes. It seems as though it seems as though it seems as though Runs with Seasons has conversations with himself as he walks, turning this way and that and grunting acknowledgments on things you cannot perceive, entities that you cannot possibly know. Until at last you come to the base of this grand tree, where, seated upon one of the gnarled branches, you will see an individual whose eyes glare at you with the knowledge and assurance of an apex predator. Standing beneath him, you will see another man, though slightly lesser, no less intense is his glare.
Runs with Seasons will approach the two men. He will nod very solemnly towards one of them and start speaking in a strange tongue, a barking and a yelping and a growling. In Garu speech, he says, "Alpha, the prince of the leeches approaches. McKinnon is his name. His companions, his child, Vivian, and associate Loretta join him for the moot. They have been cleansed."
With that, Kimmy nods and looks out towards the three gathered kindred and the rest of his court. He smiles, and with an almost ageless grace, he raises his hand. The hand is not human, it is monstrous, it is like crocodile skin. He strokes his face and watches silently.
The prince will put his hand up like this, with two fingers, just say hello.
With that, Kimmy would nod his head and then speak. Leech sons, those who follow the Father Cain White Christ story, I am glad that you have accepted the invitation. This treaty has served us well for many years.
He nods.
Kimmy would sniff the air once more, and his gaze would fall upon Loretta.
The prince is
Almost
going
a
to notice.
little anger in his eyes.
The prince will notice this and he'll squint for a second. Is there something wrong? Have we offended you in some way?
That one is close to the worm, the beast which plagues your kind. That said, now is not a moment for war. Now is not time for battle. Now is joyous ceremony, time for renewal. Aho, for many cycle, the Moon Mother, the great Luna has watched over our collective lands, keeping the peace between our people. Since the war of the Khan of the spiral heat, the people of the Wolf and the souls of the Leech Father Cain of the White Christ story have been working together to keep our greater lands free of the corrupting influence of the worm. Ikthara, despite your corruption, your people have proven they have the will to not just fight the beast within, but to take the fight to the heart of the worm, the enemy of all our people, the enemy of this world. Our people have forged a pact since this event, mine and yours. We solidify this pact with blood and sacrifice. Do you understand?
The prince nods appreciatively, and then he says, "What kind of sacrifice must be made, Kimmy?"
The sacrifice that maintains this pact to show that we are serious in our words and our actions. We must offer something up dear to us. I offer up my own son, my heir to my tribe, who would have been a future leader of my people, to continue the peace, the balance. And as tradition dictates, you must also make a tribute in kind.
When you say tribute, he narrows his eyes for a second. that one of ours must perish along with yours?
Do you hold one of yours as close to you as that?
I do. But I see no reason for either of us to make this sacrifice if we can make a pact without that. I don't wish harm upon you or your people. I wish them success, and I wish to help you and aid you if need be, in any way that I can. I don't need any tributes to sign whatever you want to sign or to honor it. I was not a fan of the previous prince, you see. And the one before him, who made this treaty with you, he had his issues, but this was the one thing I wholeheartedly agreed upon more than anything else. And he looks at you and he says, you need not waste potential from someone who would lead your people to greater success or glory.
That you do not understand the seriousness of my words, of the pact, of the binding of our people.
Maybe not, but could we talk about it?
What do you have to offer? What do you feel is important enough to show your support of this pact? So our people do not throw our lives away killing and hunting each other.
The prince is left-handed, but he holds out his right. And he says, you can take this. And he holds out his arm.
Elaborate.
You can take my arm. Right here, right now. And you need not take anything away from yourselves. You don't need to offer me anything. I just wish to sign this treaty in good faith. I just wish to honor a pact between the two of us now that we will hold for however long you wish to hold it.
That is not how this works. This is of equivalent exchange.
Well, is there something?
The spirits watch us tonight. Future generations watch us tonight. They will learn, they will listen, they will understand the sacrifices that we commit to continue this tradition. However, if you do not want to continue this agreement, this treaty, then you are free to leave and suffer the consequences.
No. I wish to honor it, he says. I just wish to find a way for us to show the spirits that we mean this in commitment without the wasting of lives that might further help our people. You
consider this sacrifice, this tribute to the spirits, a waste?
No.
At this, he's actually saying, look, fuming.
No. They are mutual enemies. Those who have fallen to the worm, as you say, at my door. I need as many able bodies as I can to fight them back. I wish not for you to be hit with an attack after we get steamrolled, as they say. And he leans back for a second and he looks to the both of them. I know not what Loretta has done to fall, as you've said, but I shall work very hard to make her a special project of mine, to make sure that she meets your standards from here on out. And then he looks to Vivian and he looks to your son, and he says, these two, though, if we should fall, need to be able to lead, so that these enemies at our gate do not overwhelm either of our people.
Tell me, Ithaca, what can you not live without?
He looks to Vivian. She's the only thing I care about, but I could give you this, maybe. And he takes out his ring. It's a mason's ring. This is the only other thing I've ever really cared for. And
you hold this ring up to the same standard that I hold my own flesh and blood, my son, my heir to my people.
It was my father's. It is the only thing I have of him. And it is what has kept me by the tenets, that has kept me away from the taint of your worm, as you put it. It is the thing that has led me by my code. I always look to it to remind me, to make sure that I don't make the wrong decisions. But I don't think you need to do anything for your son. I would rather you take that and let not wish for you to lose your precious son.
McKinnon, are you saying that Alpha's tribute is not worthy?
No, I'm saying his tribute is more than worthy. But I'm saying that... Sorry.
Vivian will turn to Patrick and say, Patrick, if there's no other way. It doesn't seem like...
No. The wise man always said there is always, always, always a way. And he looks back to Kimi and he says, it's not that your tribute is not worthy. It's that it's unnecessary. I will do whatever I have to do in order to honor this agreement. I would offer myself up rather than this. But you need to understand, your son, it's not, I could not live with that.
You would give up yourself to further this alliance between our people?
I would, but I see no reason for anyone to die.
The spirits, they say otherwise. The spirits are the wisest. And in death, they live on as ancestors, as holders of the tradition, of binders of this Gaia. Their great sacrifice, they live with honor. Honor that we can only live and aspire to.
The wind that has up until this point been calm and sedate suddenly starts to blow and howl through the trees. It ripples your clothing, messes your hair. It feels like the forest itself is breathing into you all.
The prince lets out a long sigh and he sits down. Is there a place to sit, or are they just standing?
Should be a place to sit, yes.
Okay, he sits down.
Yeah, you could easily sit on the ground or whatever else have you.
Yeah, okay, he sits down in front of Kimi, cross-legged, and he's thinking for a moment. Kimi, the spirits have told you directly that they need the life of your son. Is that exactly what they tell you?
Sacrifice on both parties to maintain this bond between our people, to honor this agreement.
Now,
This binding is to power a ritual. This ritual shall have a intermediate party, so the words say, who shall be binded with this oath, and they shall live for 100 years, and upon their death the ritual should be renewed.
so in 100 years' time, those who walk forward will die into this agreement.
No. Only the vessel of the agreement.
At this moment, two the kinfolk whom you saw earlier bring forward another. He is stripped to the waist and walks into the circle with pride. If there are eyes there, they see him as a blazing vessel. He turns his back and kneels, and you can see inscribed upon it, etched into his skin, hundreds of lines of text. This text is old. It is written in the form of languages long since dead. It is the covenant to be signed. The vessel is this individual.
That is the vessel.
Will take the vessel and take out a small sponge and begin to clean his back where the writing is, taking out from his sack a set of bone quills and small clay jars, and he'll dip these quills, probably from a porcupine, into what seems like ink and place them while you are speaking.
So your son must die so that this may live for 100 years?
Yes.
Kimi, I mean no disrespect when I say this. I would never forgive myself for sacrificing your son. It goes against my code. I would rather we try to make a new bargain. Something different.
Matt, just a quick moment. You hear the whispers of the spirits in your ears. You hear them speak to you, and they say, in a language older than time, something that you've known so well for your life, it does not understand. Blood is not what we value. What we value is what they are willing to sacrifice.
May I speak, Alpha?
You may.
Sir,
McKinnon, the spirits speak within us. They are in the trees. They are in the ground in which you sit. They are here to bear witness. You put too much emphasis on life and blood. It is your creed. Forget this. My most honorable and worthy Alpha does not give his son because he is alive. He gives his son because he cares for him, because it is important to him. The sacrifice is one of devotion, of that which you truly value. To give up something you truly value in the aid of this brings forth your commitment to the agreement, to please the spirits.
he's scratching his temples, and then he walks forward. There's no other way to appease, no other way to atone, no other way to make peace here.
It does not. This is once again to Matt. It does not understand. All we ask is what he is willing to give, to see it, this bond made manifest.
He kneels and he just offers himself.
Vivian will touch Patrick on the shoulder and say, Patrick.
No.
Yes.
He is looking up at her with tears streaming down his face, but no emotion otherwise. Nothing. Not breathing, not blinking. This is nonsensical. Completely irrational. And he looks at the wolves with the tears in his face. Will they not accept me?
You do your people a great honor. You have displayed a great honor. Your act has warmed me. I am sure our people will be ever thankful for your sacrifice. Your own people shall be likewise. You have proven yourself glorious, wise, and honorable in our eyes. With that, Kimmy stands and approaches and puts a hand out to his son.
Yes, he is willing to offer himself, an entity as old as he is. Once again, this is to Matt. We will accept this kindred, this leech as sacrifice, but we will not accept his life. We will take from him himself without being himself.
The spirits agree, but they are not bloodthirsty, nor are they blind to the plight and emotion that this has wrought between your peoples. They say that they will not take your life, but they will take you. And in a sort of very human way, he sort of tries to mumble some words, and then strain to hear, but can't hear anything, and then shrug, and then sort of look apologetically at McKenna like, I don't know.
McKenna will actually smile at Runtless Seasons for just a brief second. Sorry, we couldn't hear you.
I said mysterious ways, mysterious ways.
Would your most revered one do you the honor? With that, she passes her a weapon from seemingly nothing, out of nowhere.
Sorry, he's giving this to Vivian.
Yes.
At the appearance of the weapon, she backs up just a minute, but then as it appears as something solid, she looks at it very carefully for a moment, and then she extends her hand.
He places it gently in her hand and takes a step back.
Jake, I take it this is a clave that you've given her, or is it not? I don't know.
It's a ritualistic dagger. It's not a glaive.
Okay.
No.
So, I'm sorry, he's given her a dagger and he's expecting what? That I run his son through?
Kimmy would look to Vivian, then to McKenna.
Do you need me to tell her where to stab me?
Sorry, Vivian's just looking at the dagger and looking a little confused.
Allow the world to taste his lifeblood. Allow his essence to power this world to continue on. Do him the greatest honor and allow him to live forever. As the wind and the earth, the ground, and the skies above.
At that, her hand will tighten and she will look at Patrick with concern. That this is obviously not a place they wanted to find themselves in. And then she just looks to him to direct her, as in all things, as he always has.
Okay. Out of character, I have a quick question. Is that okay? Just one.
Let's go away.
All right, cool. Is he expecting him to make his son into like a werewolf now or something? From the way that was phrased, it's very confusing to me. I'm sorry.
Basically, from Jake's expression, he's expecting Vivian because she loves him, because the father is killing the son. In this case, it is the daughter killing the father.
Okay. Patrick just turns to her.
Vivian looks to Kimmy for a moment and then looks back to Patrick and says, I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do this either, but I don't want war.
So she would look back to Patrick and say, my love, do you want this?
It's better than the alternative.
So I guess Vivian would take it. Patrick is facing her. Would she need to take the blade all the way into him, or?
I tell you what, something is going to happen, so just do as you wish, and I will narrate the rest.
Okay, she will extend the blade out towards his chest.
Okay. As you, yeah, okay, so I'm taking it that you're going to stab him.
Yes.
Patrick, you feel the blade enter you. You feel it enter at the point of your heart, yet you've taken no damage. As the blade itself is removed from you, the blade turns to ash. It falls to dust as it is removed from your body, until the handle itself also falls to ash. You close your eyes, and it's odd. You feel the swirling of memory. You feel it all turn to ash inside you. You're losing the faces. You're losing the sensations. You're losing your loved ones, and you're losing those you've hated. That all the faces are becoming dark and opaque. All the memories flowing out of you as that knife itself turns to dust. You fall to your knees and you feel a presence surround you, drinking in it all. This is the sacrifice that they wanted, for you are a creature of age great, even by these creature standards. Thus your life would not be a fair price, because you have lived for so long. However, your memory to be
Okay.
Can't
Evan,
quite hear you.
you're fading out.
How are your memories?
Oh, so all it is that all of your memories flow out as surely as the blade turns to dust and the wound closes over.
All of my memories, even up to this moment.
You stand in a you stand among strangers, and yet you know absolute peace, for you are safe, and you know this, but that is all that you know. Vivian, from your perspective, you stabbed him, and yet the blade turned to ash in your hand, and there appears to be no wound.
So she would watch the blade disappear, and she would watch Patrick drop to his knees, and I guess there was kind of a blankness in his eyes, I guess.
It's kind of if one could describe a calm expression.
She would kneel to him and look at him and then say, Patrick, are you all right?
He doesn't know you. He doesn't know any of them. He's sort of looking about.
I mean, you remember the basics. You remember how to talk, how to act. You know, you haven't forgotten. Like they haven't taken all of that. If that makes sense, you remember all the practical things.
He's looking up at you, and again, there's tears. He looks absolutely confused, but he doesn't look unhappy. But he doesn't know what to say either, so he slowly stands and turns around in the circle looking at everyone. So
The Garou will bow their head in reverence before Runsworth Season starts to turn towards his alpha for his part of the bargain.
The spirits are not yet done. Kimmy remains, then goes on again. His head bowed.
For the record, and this is something that you can all see, as soon as the blade leaves Patrick, the vessel winces as the new cut appears in his back, being gouged deeply into his flesh. That if you can, when you look upon it, regardless what language you speak, you can read the name Patrick.
We can't hear you, Evan.
I can't hear you at all.
Sorry.
Can't hear you at all.
Is this somewhat better?
Yeah, that's better.
As the blade finally disintegrates entirely, you can see the vessel wince in pain as he kneels on the ground. And regardless what language you speak, regardless what your mother tongue is, a new wound is gouged deep in his flesh that simply reads Patrick McKinnon. The spirits do whisper, Matt. We have taken, he has given, the balance. Yes, we now owe a debt. It shall be paid.
Sorry, I had to
Obvious.
turn the muting.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The spirits have taken, and you have given. The balance must be corrected. We owe a debt.
With that, Kimmy calls upon his son once more and kneels him down in front of him and places his hand on his son's head. Evan, would you like to describe what happens next?
The child looks up at you. His eyes are conflict, and he simply says, I see things that I don't understand. People and faces, things and times. What is this?
Kimmy would, a tear would roll down his eye, and he would lean forward, and he would place a kiss on his son's head, and he would say, I miss you, son. You do your people the greatest honor. You will have stories and songs told about you, but your place is no longer with us. You are now no longer my son. With that, he would place his hands under the chin of his son and raise him up, and turn him about, and direct him towards the vampires.
He'll walk rather confused towards them.
Vivian, I guess, would look. This is a child who's coming at her or at them.
Probably about late teens. Yeah, probably about 18, 19.
She would look to Kimmy and she would say, "You want us to take him? What's happened to Patrick? I don't understand."
At that, he's sort of looking at her. He doesn't know her. And he's looking back at the others in the room, or I guess the forest, sort of almost through them. And he's sort of feeling where the knife was for a second, reflexively. And then he speaks. Where am I?
You're muted,
Jake.
Jake. Yeah.
You have given your sacrifice. I have given my sacrifice. You have ensured a century of peace between our people, between the warriors of Gaia and the Ithaca. Go with honor.
As you say this, the child kneels beside Patrick and says, I know that face. That face. Yes, I do. At which point you can see the vessel wince once again as the name of the Alpha, whose name is Akimi Ahote, is carved into the back. Blood spills, and the covenant is signed.
The Garou let out a large triumphant howl into the night air, piercing the ears of all assembled.
That, with the baying of wolves, we will